Welcome to Strange Paradigms. In this weekly show, we'll be taking a look into the news and headlines to pick out curious reports of the strange and the mysterious. Anything from UFO news to black holes and stuff labeled fringe science and fringe phenomena. The idea is for you, the viewers, to be able to offer your thoughts and input on the stories that we cover in the live chat. Each news item we go over in the show, I will put all the links in the description box below when the show is over, as well as chapters of the timeline index. Please share this video with everyone or groups who you think will be interesting. Some weeks I will be hosting the show on my own, while other weeks I will have a guest co host join me. Chris Plain was supposed to co host with me, but his internet went down in the last hour, so he will join me if it's fixed, but otherwise, it'll just be me and you all. So, first, let me say hi to some people in the live chat. Hello, UFO Oogles in space, Zeta, Hides, Sir Grizz, Xavier, Esmeralda, Bob, thank you so much for the super sticker. Jessica, thank you as well. Dennis, James, Max, how is everyone doing today? There's a lot of really fascinating articles to cover. And, sometimes it's kind of hard to know where to start. But I think starting off with space is going to be fantastic. Let me share the screen with you so you can catch exactly what article I will be reading first. And that is this one right here. It says these eerie wails are a real sound wave from a supermassive black hole. So we might not be able to hear sound in space, but doesn't mean that there isn't any. In 2003, astronomers detected something truly astonishing: acoustic waves propagating through the gas surrounding a supermassive black hole 250 million light years away. So, a new sonification, which is data that can be turned into sound, has not only added to the notes detected from the black hole, but brought them up 57 and 58 octaves so that we can kind of get a sense of what they would sound like ringing through intergalactic space. And actually, on this website, it kind of shows you what it might sound like or what it does sound like. So, let me know if you're able to hear this. Can you hear that? Yeah, that's pretty unbelievable. So that sounds very much like music in my ears. And there are multiple findings of different planets and different moons that sound has been captured, or at least collecting data, and then from there being able to interpret sound. And I would like to share another video with you. Hopefully, you were able to hear that one. I wasn't sure if you could hear anything. Oh, yes. Esmeralda says yes. So let me pull up this one because it gives us what multiple different things sound like. But let me fix that. Okay. All right. So listen to this, but also watch the screen so that you know exactly what you're listening to. So this one is the sound of the sun. What does that sound like to you? Are you able to hear that? These ones are two black holes spiraling. Oh, no sound. Okay. Let me see why there's no sound for this video that I actually have saved onto my desktop. But if that's the case, I will figure that out a little bit later. But The point being is, while many of us may think that space is completely quiet, in reality, they all have their own very unique and special sounds, that something that I didn't really imagine. And I find that so fascinating. There's so much that we don't understand about the space around us and our universe, our galaxy, and even our solar system. While we're studying it every single day, there's always something that piques our interest or something that we just simply didn't expect beforehand. I would like to repeat that all of these articles that I am covering today will be in the description box below when this show is over. But when it comes to black holes, I feel like I cover it every single show. And even before Strange Paradigms, I would cover it as a news item for shifting the paradigm. And black holes always pop up. There's always something new to learn about black holes. And let me tell you, I find them so fascinating. And one question that I ask pretty often is, what do you think about white holes? And this question is directed towards the live chat. This is totally theoretical, meaning that you can enter one point into a hole, and then a white hole means that you're going to exit out in a different location, either another location here in our universe, or a different dimension, or maybe even a different time. It's very, very theoretical, but I don't know, I like that, just it just blows my mind if that really could happen, and if that was the case, how we as a human species would be able to harness that, or to work with it and go from one location to another, kind of like a portal or a wormhole as well. So I just think it's so cool. Jessica says, yes, I definitely believe that's what black holes are. Well, my question is, why do you think that's the case? I have to know. I mean, this is very difficult to test. We are aware that they're just incredibly dangerous. So it would be hard to say how we could assume what really happens if you enter a black hole. My next question would be, if you were given the opportunity, knowing that you wouldn't return, would you go through a black hole? Would you? In space, no one steals Christina's ice cream. This is so true. That is, you can't do that. And I'll tell a story about that maybe a little bit later, about someone that stole my ice cream. And I got really upset back in high school. But everything goes in, but where does it go? This is a big question that a lot of astronomers and astrophysicists ask. When all of this is just being swallowed up by a black hole, where does it go? Now, Curious George brought up about ice cream and you shouldn't steal it. I'm going to tell you a really quick story. So, when I was in high school, we had to do a video project. And I was pretty good at creating videos at this time. I used iMovie, which is, I don't recommend anyone using that, but that's what I used to use. And I had this friend that used to sit next to me in my English class, and he was like, "Hey, look, I will pay you to do my project for me. I will give you money to get me an A on my video project." And I'm like, "You know what? You know what I'll do for you? Don't pay me in real money. Just pay me in ice cream." Luckily, there's a grocery store literally right next to my high school. So he bought ice cream for me, and then I put it in the library freezer because the librarian and we were tight. We were like really close. And so I would put it in there. And then I told him, I'm like, "Okay, you gave me this ice cream. You gave me 2 pints of ice cream. It's mine. You're not allowed to eat it. I don't care. I don't care how hungry you are. You cannot eat my ice cream." So what does he do? Because he was an impulsive child, he ate my ice cream. I was very upset. When I found out, he even put a post-it note that said, "I ate your ice cream." As soon as I found him, I verbally punched him in the face. Not physically, because we can't do that, but verbally. I was very upset. And then he told me, "Oh, just kidding. I didn't actually eat your ice cream." And ever since then, I've been very careful on who I tell where my ice cream is even located, because it's very sacred to me and it's absolutely very delicious. Total side question. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream? I could honestly talk about this all day. Ice cream and noodles, I could do this all day. But I have to ask you now, what is your absolute favorite flavor? Mine, I like vanilla. I really like vanilla because I can add all of these special toppings like sprinkles M&Ms, bananas, all that good stuff. But also Cherry Garcia, also fantastic. Let's get back into talking about the fascinating news for this week. Curious George says mint chocolate chip. Chocolate? Mint, wow, mint chocolate chip is really popular with y'all. That is my absolute, I cannot stand mint chocolate chip. It's like sugary toothpaste. No, I can't. I can't do it. Oh, chocolate in all forms? Ooh, I'm cinnamon and pistachio. I have never tried cinnamon ice cream, but that sounds really fantastic, and pistachio all the way. I love pistachio ice cream, especially when it has like the real pistachios in it. Oh yeah. Also the ones that like strawberry ice cream with like real strawberries, also delicious. So, oh my goodness. Next story that I would like to cover is one dealing with, you guessed it, alien abductions. Let me pull that up. Where is it? See, through StreamYard, you're able to like click a tab, but it's not in the same order as where your tabs are. It's a little bit harder to find. But this one's rather fascinating. And this one says a man says he's been abducted by aliens at least 60 times from age 16 when he lived in Bradford, which is in the United Kingdom. Now, this story is about a man named Russ Kellett, and he's 58 years old. He was a former Bradford businessman who now lives in North Yorkshire and has documented several incidents over many years in which he says he was taken away by an alien race. Here's where it gets crazy. In order to take part in an intergalactic type war. That blew my mind, and that's why I'm actually covering the story today. So many of us have looked into the more famous abduction stories, such as Whitley Strieber, Travis Walton, Betty and Barney Hill, and even Debbie Cobble. But in these main stories, and even other ones that I've looked into, I have not heard one which stated that they believed that they were being abducted just to be part of an intergalactic war. Oh my gosh. I mean, how does that make you feel? Okay? How does that, and here's the thing when it comes to any kind of UFO story, abduction story, sighting as well. It's not always easy to decipher if these encounters are true or not by the people that tell them. But I think at the end of the day, it's keeping an open mind and having listening ears to those that tell these stories. And then from there, you can decipher if you believe it to be true or not. But for the most part, it is kind of hard to say. And I'm going to read some more details on this specific article. So he goes into detail that his incredible claims include seeing alien creatures and even spotted pop star Robbie Williams aboard an alien craft. How many of you know who Robert Williams is? I actually had no idea who he was. So I'm going to pull him up. Maybe some of you, if you see a picture, you'll know who I'm talking about. But again, I was not familiar with this person, but I'm assuming that he must be famous in the UK. Here he is. So he even saw this man on the craft in one of these 60 times that he allegedly was abducted. And, I don't know how overall, I don't really know how to process alien abduction stories into my paradigm, and that's because I haven't really experienced one. And I mean, like, I have a complete open mind as to it being a reality, but how do you how do you incorporate it into your reality if you're not an abductee yourself? And that is an open question for those in the live chat. For those that have heard these stories, how are you able to incorporate them in your paradigm? Android, thank you so much. It says, love the new live shows, Christina. You're awesome. You're awesome, my friend. So let's continue a little bit more with this story. And let me pull it up. So, what's incredibly interesting about this is that he believes that he underwent medical procedures at the hands of a race that he kind of described as like very tall invaders. And he revealed that he's again been abducted about 60 times. And the first one happened when he was just 16, as it mentioned in the title, when he was traveling home on his motorbike. So during that close encounter, he said that he went through a tunnel and ended up in a room that resembles a dental surgery with 15-foot tall aliens. And he described them like Dracula, but without sharp teeth. And he even did a drawing for what these beings looked like. It looks kind of like this. I mean, I'm not a big artist. I mean, drawing faces is not easy. Like, so I think he did a pretty fantastic job if that's kind of an idea of what he saw. But for those that have drawn faces, you know, it is not easy, especially when trying to be symmetrical. Right. So he ended up telling a story to a UFO investigator, and he had stated that he had some type of tube pushed down his throat, and then they pumped some type of liquid inside of him, which turned him into a super soldier. So again, this is why I find this story so interesting, and really why I'm covering it is because you have a man who is claimed to have been abducted 60 times, and he stated that he was created or he was abducted to be a super soldier. I still don't know how I I don't really know how to think about that. Again, do you believe this to be a true story or just something that's way too bizarre? Well, he even when he tells the story to people and to other UFO investigators, and to the point where actually a news outlet even caught this story, he said, "Does this sound crazy? Absolutely. It sounds crazy." However, he said it was a living hell and an absolute nightmare. He then goes ahead and states that there are some people in the UFO community who are only out there to make money, to make cash, to really sell their stories. But he states, "I would rather my truth get out there than other people's lies." So when I hear something like that, it kind of takes me aback. And I think, with that kind of statement, it can make a little bit more sense, just a little bit. He did end up writing 2 books on his encounters, so he is trying to make some kind of money, or he is just trying to inform the public about his encounters. It is also kind of difficult to consider when it comes to money and writing books or doing documentaries and things like that. But I mean, when he stated that the UFO community just wants to make money, that's kind of where I have to go against that. I mean, who makes money in the UFO movement? I mean, I know several authors who have written many books and they still struggle, and they can't really get rich in this topic. Actually, you can get very poor because research costs a lot of money, especially if you do field research and you need to buy equipment. And we're aware that a lot of the equipment to go night watching, sky watching, is pretty expensive if you want the really good stuff. So when he stated that, oh, they're trying to make money, I'm thinking, well, I'm a part of the UFO community and I have not met one single rich person. I have not met one single rich person that's involved in the community and actually got rich off of the community for the most part. But what about you? Many of you have been in the field for decades, and some of you are just so new to it. From your own experience and the people that you've spoken to, have you seen a lot of cash flow, a lot of money flow in the community? It's a good question. It's worth asking. Because, like I said, for the most part, you're not going to get rich off of this. We do it, we study it, we research it because we love it. we find it that probably one of the most important conversations to have, at least in my opinion. And the reason to why I talk about this practically on a daily basis, online and even in person, is because I am bringing it to my generation, Gen Z, those in high school, those in college, to open their minds, to look outside of their out of their cell phone and think of all the possibilities of what's out there, because there's so much that we don't know. And that's kind of what makes it so exciting to continue to understand the world around us. And people would still classify it as fringe, but it's still rather fascinating. And science is slowly catching up to it, as we can tell with the Galileo project, for instance. So it is pretty fantastic. And Dan says Nick Redfern will have written 3 books during this show. He is a beast when it comes to writing books. He has written some fantastic ones, and for those that don't know who he is or haven't read his books, I do recommend it. They are really fantastic. And then I3 Lip says, if you want to get rich off of alien abductions, you gotta pinch their equipment and sell it to the Pentagon. I I haven't heard anyone tell that story yet, but that is pretty funny. Okay. So that's and what else is interesting when it comes to alien abductions is it really does play a big part in the UFO phenomenon, and everyone kind of has their own take on it. For instance, Ray Hernandez in his study, which there's a lot more details in an interview that I conducted with him a few weeks back, so do take a look at it. And he states in a survey that he had conducted a few years back that people that encountered UFOs or abductions had a more pleasant experience than they first imagined. Then you have demonologist Nathaniel Giles that states that what if we're mislabeling demon possessions and demon encounters with alien abductions and alien encounters? And in this case, you would visualize it as a lot more negative when you label it as a demon versus as an extraterrestrial or a being of light, or depending on however they manifest. So, when it comes to something like this, alien abductions, it's it's different to see if you see it in a positive light or a negative light, a positive experience or a negative experience. So, my question is for those that have been looking into this for quite some time, what are your thoughts on alien abductions? Do you think they're overall a positive thing or a negative experience based off of your research or the people that you've spoken to or the stories that you've heard? What do you think? And we can look an example of this would be Travis Walton. When he was first abducted, he thought it was a very traumatic and horrible experience. But as the years progressed, he began to have this realization that he really was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that the reason to why he ended up being on this alleged ship was because these beings had accidentally hurt him and they needed to somehow fix him back up and then place him back on Earth. So he had this paradigm shift from seeing it as a negative experience into a more kind of, I was really in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it became a little bit more positive. And then you even have Whitley Strieber as well, who he was pretty scared, but then as the years progressed, he saw it in a more positive light as well. But then you have this man that we're talking about today, and it hasn't been positive at all in the 60 abductions that he's had since he was 16. So it is really, I just don't know what to think about it. I think I need to do more research before coming up with my own opinion on it. But I would like to hear it for yourself. Oh, Logan, thank you so much. Thank you. So, before we continue, I really do want to hear your thoughts in the live chat so that they can somewhat be addressed. Jessica says, I think it's half extraterrestrials and half of our government that is abducting people, and the government allows them to abduct a certain type of people. Why do you think that is? I mean, there are some theories on that. I have heard something similar to that, where you are having some government officials and you're having some extraterrestrials, or sometimes the extraterrestrials are blaming the government and vice versa, or the government is blaming extraterrestrials. So it's kind of a mind game in all of this. And again, for those that have been in the field for decades, no, there's a lot of disinformation that gets passed through all the things that we look into. So it is very difficult to say. And abductions have seen both aliens and humans in uniforms on board craft, which blows my mind in some of the cases that I have looked into. And when you're looking into the UFO phenomenon, it is very difficult to avoid the abduction side to it. So it is really something else. And when we're looking at abductees, okay, they are, some claim that they're seeing aliens in uniforms, and sometimes that they're seeing humans in uniforms on board a craft. Are these really extraterrestrial craft, or are these man-made craft? Well, we simply don't know. All we can do is keep listening to stories on that. Now, because this is still a new story and probably one that you've heard quite a few times, something that we cannot avoid today is the UAP Congressional hearing. Oh, yeah, we have to get into this today. So, I have been on a few panels going into detail on the UAP hearing, but we're gonna do a deeper dive into this. First off, first big question. What were your thoughts on it? Do you think it was a good first step forward, or was it an absolute waste of time? What, just right off the bat, what did you think about it? Well, we are aware that the debrief wrote several articles on the UAP hearing, and it's fascinating. And while for some it might be considered old news already, this is something that is not going anywhere. This is not going anywhere. In my opinion, I believe it is the first step forward. And if anything, more mainstream outlets need to cover this UAP hearing. For those that watched it, do you think it got the coverage that it deserved by other mainstream outlets? Or do you think it needed more, or it didn't need any at all? What do you think about that? From my research, from one looking into all of this, the debrief did a fantastic job looking and reporting the UAP hearing. As for the mainstream, a few kind of touched on it, but since Tuesday, at the latest Wednesday, it was swept under the rug. No one's really talked about it since, except for people in our community. So if you haven't watched it, please watch it, and then this way you're able to conduct a better opinion on if you thought it was worth it. But I would like to talk about it. I really would. I think it's so important. So this was going on for an hour and a half. Also, for those that haven't watched it, I do have it on my YouTube channel and when it was streaming live, so do take a look at that. Here are my first thoughts. The first 5 minutes in, I was blown away. You had Representative Carson set the stage, set the tone for the meeting. He immediately brought up Project Blue Book. He immediately brought up the UAP office, which is AOI MSG, but he said it in some very foreign way. When I first heard him say it, I'm thinking, "Is this the new UFO office? I've never heard of this." I think he pronounced it like AIMSOG or something like that. I mean, it just sounds very disgusting. It sounds very gross. But even if you say all the letters AOYMSG, it's a mouthful. It is a very long title. But putting how he pronounced it aside, AIMSOG, thank you, baby goat. Yeah, when I heard that, like you see my eyebrows, they were thinking, what? What's going on? But aside from how he pronounced it, he again set the tone for the meeting. And it just went to show that the first several minutes were placed very seriously. Then he brought up MUFON and Jeremy Corbell, but actually just saying Corbell. So people that don't know who he is, they wouldn't have known what his first name. Okay. Then in the 7-minute mark, here is kind of where it went downhill a little bit and then back uphill. But at the 7-minute mark, you had Representative Crawford, and he goes straight into the threats with China and Russia, stating that the information is more important than looking at it as an alien threat. And he stated, quote, with surprising up with unforeseen new technology. So he is practically saying that what we're seeing in the skies right now, it has to be foreign technology that we're simply here in the United States just not aware of. And while a lot of people don't like the possibility of UFOs being classified as a threat, I think we need to kind of have that balance between those that believe it is a threat and those that aren't. And here is the argument that I always make, and that is if we don't, if the government doesn't classify these things that we're seeing in the sky or in the oceans as a threat, it will not be researched. There will not be funding on it because the government, military officials have the mindset that if anything is a threat, they're going to step on it. They're going to research into it. They're going to try and protect themselves and the country. But if it's not a threat, they're just going to brush it off and say, well, there's nothing to look at here. Everything is a-okay. So a potential threat is going to be what makes the that kind of makes paper get pushed and orders be given. And so when they say potential threat, that is the key word. They don't usually just say it is a threat. They say it is a potential threat. And that's very important. And this way they kind of have this leeway of how they're going to handle it. But we also need to keep in mind that air safety concerns is also valid. It is very valid. They stated in the hearing that there were several near misses with the UFO and a human airplane or a human type of flying vehicle. So this is very important to mention. Android says, what's your thought on them admitting they didn't have the resources to chase leads about events Gallagher pressed them about? Ah, it is when I had heard that, I was like, that's pretty unfortunate. But they always want more money. Every department and agency, more budget, more money. Doesn't matter which department it is, they always want a bigger budget. So, of course, they're going to say that so they can get more money in their pocket. When I heard that, I kind of rolled my eyes and I'm thinking, oh, really? Where do you think all of our tax dollars go? Where do they go? Deranged Lunatic, thank you so much for the super sticker. Curious George says 11 near misses. That's a pretty big deal. That is enough to get people's attention and enough to be classified as a potential threat as well. So you're going to have two camps when it comes to the UFO community. You're going to have those that are going to say everything is hunky dory, everything is great, UFOs can never be classified as a threat, and then you're going to have the other camp stating, look, if it's not classified as a threat, we're not going to get any serious research out of it. We're not going to be given any type of serious data as well. So when it came to Representative Crawford, well, of course, I didn't necessarily agree with what he was saying. He brought in that balance with the rest of the panel that he was a part of. Then you had Adam Schiff, okay? And he practically asked, can these phenomenon be measured? And then he says that the tech could possibly go over our physics and science today of things that pilots and civilians are seeing. Then you had Moultrie at about the 14-minute mark that said, well, we're still having cultural stigma, but it is coming down a decent amount. And the first question that came to mind, and what I also was reading in a live chat while I was streaming this from my YouTube channel, and it was a pretty good point. And that was the question of, well, isn't that the government's fault for creating this cultural stigma? I mean, they were right before Project Blue Book, they were kind of the people making fun of flying saucers, UFOs, and things like that, where they actually made a commercial where they had a man and he was throwing literal like saucers for teacups and saying, "Oh, look, a flying saucer," and try to make this into a type of joke. So I felt that was a pretty good question to bring up. Moultrie said, well, we're lowering the cultural stigma. Well, could that have been created by the government to kind of infiltrate it into the public? Dan, thank you so much. It says Moultrie and Bray. Ill informed or just plain dumb, not being aware of any programs before Blue Book or aware of the Wilson docs and Maelstrom incident. And these guys are in charge? That blew me away as well, but this is what we do need to keep in mind. If that is the case, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt for this, just for a moment. From my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, they didn't look at any history or anything before 2004. So, Blue Book, Maelstrom, and things like that happened during the late 1900s. Can you believe that? That sounds like so long ago, but it wasn't. But when you're dealing with the Wilson dogs, for the most part, it still hasn't. That one's kind of a touchy subject when it comes to that. But we do, from my understanding, once again, they didn't look at anything prior to 2004. But when you're dealing with Maelstrom, that one is a difficult one and kind of alarming that they weren't aware of that, or if they were playing dumb. If they were playing dumb, maybe it would have been addressed in the closed meeting and the closed door meeting. But for the public, could you imagine like just not being familiar with the subject of UFOs? Let's just go there for a sec. And then you're like, oh, what's Maelstrom? And then Moultrie or Bray goes into depth of what Maelstrom is, okay? Then you're going to have your average civilian, again, not knowing about the subject, Googling it. And they could be so scared thinking, oh my gosh, some entity can just disarm nukes? Like what? But this is a consistent theme where we have not just Maelstrom, but also in California and even Russia as well. So it's kind of difficult for us in this community. Yeah, we're able to handle it because we've been doing the research for a good amount of time. But for those that are just so fresh to the topic that don't know too much, it can be a little bit alarming without a foundation. And that's why we have this show right here, Strange Paradigms, Mysteries with a History, Shifting the Paradigm. It is giving that foundation to those that are just jumping into the field. while it is geared more to my generation, it is for absolutely everyone that wants to understand, to the best of their ability, and mine included, of what the heck is going on, but also to open our minds to so much more that's out there that we couldn't even imagine. Things outside of the Kardashians or fast fashion, or like, I don't know, how to cook eggs and toast or something, which I do love cooking shows. They make me so hungry, and then I want to cook the whole kitchen, and then all of my food, it tastes awful. That's why I only eat ramen, because I'm actually like good at making that. And eggs. I make the best eggs. Don't tell anyone though. So, as we continue with this hearing, it you were getting serious, and then it went down a little bit, and then it kind of peaked back up. But at about around the 20-minute mark, that's when they started showing films or clips of different types of UFO that was captured. At the 20-minute mark, you had one of like a very fast moving object, which would be revised a little bit later. Then, about 2 minutes after that, you had the triangle craft, which was recorded by night vision goggles with a single lens reflected camera. And Bray had stated that it hadn't been resolved for years. I was like, okay, so then where's all that funding going? And then you had a third video also filmed with a night vision camera on with an SLR. But when we're looking at that very first video, that fast moving UFO, that is where my hair started. I started to pull out my hair. Like, I think I could have ended up bald if that clip continued, where they're showing this video recorded on an iPhone by a pilot, and they didn't have a freeze frame of the craft. They didn't even slow-mo the video. I was in physical pain at that moment. This was like 6:30 a.m. my time, so I'm like sleep deprived and almost going bald. When you saw that section of the hearing, how did that make you feel? And why do you think that was the case? So, I had multiple thoughts on this, but the biggest one that came to mind, well, there were two. Either one, they weren't prepared, which I'm going to have to disagree with, because they were so prepared that they wrote like 3-page intros, both Bray and Moultrie. So they had to be somewhat prepared. My other possible idea or opinion in this was that it was intentional. It was intentional to let that video play over and over and over again and deliberately not catching the craft. Could it have been because they wanted to demonstrate how absolutely fast it was? Did they want to somehow dumb down the hearing, or something else entirely? We do need to keep in mind that we are dealing with intel agents. What are they best at? Psychology. They're really good at that. Okay, they're good at understanding that. So, and we also need to keep in mind they're not playing average chess the way we are. They are playing 3D chess. 3D chess, okay? Or the ones that we saw in in Star Trek Discovery. Like, that chess is pretty fantastic. Their thinking is so much more extreme when it comes to how to manipulate a situation. So when I was watching this playing over and over again with Adam Schiff trying to catch it, and Bray as well, I'm, one, going bald, obviously, but two, thinking there has to be some kind of reason for this. Now, what's the reason? I don't know, but I want to know. Dennis says it was cringe for me. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Me too. Me too. But I had to give them the benefit of the doubt, thinking I had to see this in a more positive light, as if there had to be a reason. And Esmeralda says they wanted to frustrate us so we would give up on getting any real UFO info from them. That could also be possible. Canoodle's already bald. Oh yeah. But here's another thing. Uh, could it Could it have been just to maintain the image to the public that the whole UFO issue is just a bunch of UFO issues, you know? So it is, were they just projecting an image? It is kind of hard to say. So I am not too sure on that, but that's something that really caught my attention when it came to the UAP hearing. There is a break coming. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Micah Hanks, and let me tell you something. I support Cristina Gomez as a Patreon subscriber, and here's why you should too. She brings all of her unique insights to a whole new generation, and all while she's also going through college. Listen, support Cristina, become a Patreon subscriber today. You won't regret it.
Hey there, it's Cristina. Did you know you can get access to an exclusive extra segment of additional questions and answers with all of my guests, as well as behind-the-scene videos and photos? Ever wonder how I turn my small college dorm apartment into a studio where I can shoot new videos or set up lighting and backdrops for my show, or what camera I use? Yep, that video is there too, where I explain as I go along and also give the story of how I learned to do special video effects and editing. You can get access to all of that and much more by joining my Patreon Supporters Club. You'll be helping by supporting this channel, my research, and production costs, as well as investing in new shows coming soon. Starting from as little as $5 a month, there are several tiers you can choose from that suit your budget, and each tier carries extra perks and benefits. Join my Patreon club and become a supporter today. And we are back. So, your overall opinion on the UAP hearing that happened Tuesday morning, from a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the absolute best, what score would you give it? I would give it maybe a solid 6, because I feel like this is a great stepping stone, and we need to keep in mind we received the UAP preliminary report last June. And that was for many very disappointing, but for some of us, pretty exciting that we even received a report. Then in November, we had Our Future in Space, where for the very first time, by a person in the government stating extraterrestrial. And to the point where she nearly stuttered. She felt so uncomfortable saying that, but we were able to witness her stating it. And then now we have this UAP hearing where that word came up more than once. So, of course, these are baby steps and we're still getting there. I don't think that our next UAP hearing is going to be in 50 years' time. Maybe it'll just be in 1, 2, tops 5 years' time, if not less than that. So we are making history right now. We are watching history be made. And I had stated this on Spaced Out Radio not too long ago of it's going to come in a point in time, 10, 20, 30 years time, we're going to tell our children and our grandchildren like this. Back in my day, I got to watch the very first UAP hearing in 50 years, and I got to watch history. I mean, while we can't realize that at this exact moment in 20, 30 years, it's going to be a really big deal that we were a part of it, that we were able to witness it firsthand and to have these conversations as well when, I guess, and I'm putting this in air quotes, when it wasn't cool yet. So I these are really, really exciting times at the end of the day. I could not be more excited. Since 2017 onward, the ball has been rolling, and it's been rolling rather smoothly. more smoothly than your average person would expect. And while many people still aren't really familiar with the topic or how important this is, in time they will. As time progresses, it's going to be a more mainstream conversation. And I don't know what show I was telling this on, but I was speaking to someone and I stated, when I'm out and about, I see a lot of people in my generation, a little bit older. A lot of them have alien tattoos, alien pins, wearing alien t-shirts, and I'm just thinking, this is a great start. We're getting the pulp culture involved in this. There's a lot of TV shows on it as well. You're getting really cute doodles of these cute little aliens on t-shirts, on notepads, on just on everything you can imagine. It's there. And while they might not be familiar with the history or how the government is handling it, it's a great start. And I ask a lot of people on college campus, and those even in high school, of like, do you think there's aliens? Do you think there's extraterrestrials out there? And they always look at me and they're like, yeah, duh, without a doubt. I mean, what do you think I am, dumb? And I'm thinking, no, it's a very valid question. And we've come to this point in time where it's not a question if there is life out there in our universe. A question could possibly be, are they visiting us? That's a bigger question. And I've asked that quite a few times to some of my peers, and some of them kind of giggle, like, that's a silly question, while others state, why not? Why not? So next time you go out and you're with a crowd of people, or you're at the mall or at the park, or I don't know, wherever you people go, look for alien tattoos, look for alien merch, and strike a conversation and say, hey, what do you think about the UAP hearing? And they'll be like, what are you talking about? And then from there, you're able to open that door and hold that conversation, and then let them join the community. Let's get into our next article, and this one is rather fascinating. This one is about lake replenishes water without a known source. And this is in Canada. How many of you live in Canada right now? If you live, you should definitely check out this lake right here. Oh, oh yeah. So this is a pretty weird, and this is located in Ontario mountain range. And this lake has confounded scientists and locals alike, and it's a mystery that has yet to be solved, defying all known geographical and geological theories. So, this lake can be found in the province of Prince Edward in Ontario, Canada. And the lake is almost 500 feet above sea level, close to the mountain tops. And the lake provides fresh water without any notable source, and somehow restores itself from atop its mountain perch. Just right off the bat, before we even continue, what are your thoughts on that? How how do you think a lake like this is able to replenish its water without a known water source? Hmm? Hyde says under Lake Spring. Well, there has been a lot of research done in this area. However, no one is able to find a plausible explanation for it, and that's why it is so bizarre. Research has been conducted, but no one can find an answer yet. There are merely just theories still on this. And the local First Nation tribe of the Mohawks call it Onokenoga, or Lake of the Gods, and believe that specific water spirits dwell within its deep water. And even early settlers believed the lake was bottomless and stretched out to the center of the earth, which is also very cool. But others thought the lake on the mountain led to a subterranean passage and a very distant water source. However, all the exploration and studies of this strange place, no such water source has been found. And in addition to mystery and charm, this amazing spot has some extraordinary picturesque sights, and it's completely surrounded by the stunning nature of Canada. And there are many hiking spots around it if you're going to go visit the area. So, for those that have been, what are your thoughts on it? And for those that live in Canada, would you visit this lake? I mean, as they stated, it is a beautiful place to visit. And I do like lakes. I love nature 100%, but then again, who doesn't? Who doesn't love nature? Here's my question. Do you prefer the mountains or the ocean? Which one do you like more? If you had to live in one place for the rest of your life, would you pick a location next to the mountains or a location next to the ocean? And you can't have both. It's got to be one or the other. And for myself, I find that a pretty difficult choice. It would be kind of hard to say. Oh, yep, that's right, Dark Star. Christina's RV trip list. Well, I am telling you what, I am saving up absolutely everything I can to get an RV and travel the United States. Now, when it comes to Canada, that's a different story altogether. But if I could, I don't see why not. I'd probably go. But I do have a few places that I want to visit as soon as I get that trailer. And it's gonna be okay, I'm gonna walk you through it. So I've been planning this for quite a few years now of getting an RV, making it a home/studio where I'm able to travel all of the hot spots around the United States and vlog it. So to walk people through this adventure like a video journal, to interview witnesses, to speak to people that live in and around hot spots as well. So it is something that I've been planning even before doing this channel. And I have big dreams. I got really big dreams. I've just got to save up as much as I can because they're not a cheap to afford. But as time progresses, we are going to get there and I'm going to share all of the journeys with you. Oh, it's going to be so fantastic. Ooh, Mount Shasta. Absolutely. So, ooh, ocean can cause a tsunami. This is true. And tsunamis are kind of scary. So I'm going to pass on that as well. She says the mountains. Ooh, I live on an island. That sounds nice. Does it have mountains as well? Because it's got like the mountains and the ocean. You get the best of both worlds. The ocean brings us all together. Ooh, Sedona. Curious George, if you would go to Sedona, would you visit Bradshaw Ranch? For those that didn't watch the show yesterday, Mysteries of Arizona, we mentioned Bradshaw Ranch. We mentioned Sedona, which is probably one of the biggest UFO sighting hotspots in the United States. So if you ever visit Sedona, you definitely want to check the area of Bradshaw Ranch, or as Jimmy had mentioned, Bell Rock as well, where you can possibly catch a sighting. I also hear it is very beautiful as well. So if I get an RV, I'd probably make that as a stop. But if I had to pick between the mountains and the ocean, I like them both. It's so hard to say, but I feel like the mountains, you get that nice mountain breeze. But then with the ocean, you also get that beautiful ocean breeze and you get like fish and stuff. But I don't really like sand that much. I'm not a big fan of sand. So probably the mountains because it's just so beautiful. Hopefully there's like a lake nearby. So when we're looking at this article dealing with a lake in Canada that can just replenish itself, you could know that if you lived in and around there, you could probably take all the water that you need and it'll always come back. It'll always come back. That'll be fantastic. But that's probably not too much of the case. One thing at a time. Always. It's always good to have a one-track mind as well, doing one task at a time. So, this next article is also pretty fantastic. And this one is kind of about our strange universe. And let me pull it up. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. Check this out. Alien stone in Egyptian desert came from rare supernova, scientists say. So this little stone is pretty small. We're looking at really not that much. It's about 3 grams in total. And why I bring this up is because results of recent high tech experiments on a space rock found in the desert of Egypt have revealed a highly unusual chemical composition. And the actual stone is bigger, but this is just a sample pic, if you were wondering. So, the Hypatia Stone, which was first discovered in Egypt in 1996, has yielded test results that suggest it may contain dust and gas that once surrounded an enormous type of supernova. So, the spectacular explosion of a dying star. And the rock likely came from one of the brightest types of cosmic explosions. And a type 1A supernova is where a white dwarf or husk of a collapsed star shares an orbit with the larger, younger star that still have some fuel to burn. And the smaller and denser white dwarf uses its immense gravitational pull to snatch some of the younger star's fuel, which it gorges on relentlessly, stretching the young star into a teardrop type shape. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. For those that haven't seen it, it is pretty fantastic. So here is kind of what I'm talking about. It's just being swallowed in like this. Very cool. So I'll leave that picture up. And what's fascinating about this is how we're able to even see something like this and document it and do the research on it. It is just unbelievable. So the act of cosmic cannibalism eventually ends in mutual destruction. However, as the white dwarf grows large enough for nuclear reactions to reignite in its core, and after a sudden bright flash, an enormous supernova blast hurls the contents of both stars outward to mingle and merge with the dust. Isn't that so fascinating? Wow, stealing energy looks so cool. It does. Hyde says, trying to imagine a star coming out of a white hole. This is why they're so fascinating, white holes, black holes, just the concept of it. Because there are endless possibilities of what could be going on. And that's why I just love studying space. When I was younger, I wasn't too fond of it. Then I took a class in university of astronomy, and I'm not going to lie, I was really expecting him to talk about extraterrestrial life and the possibilities of that, but it was ended up being all about stars and planets and how they're created. So I was slightly disappointed, but for the most part, it was a really fascinating class. So for those that are in college or going into college, I I think you should take one astronomy class. Just one. Just one. It does go towards your credits. It does go towards your science credit that every degree needs. So take the class. It's pretty fascinating, and I hear it's a lot easier than biology or chemistry. If you are planning on taking a course, take astronomy. Very cool. Very cool. So, in the case of the stone that I just showed you, the Hypatia Stone, the cocktail of dust and gas likely drifted through space over billions of years until it arrived in our cosmic backyard, eventually solidifying into the larger parent body of the Hypatia Stone sometime during the birth of our solar system, which has been suggested by the researchers. So, once formed, likely somewhere in the outer solar system, the rock eventually hurtled to Earth, shattering into fragments as it landed. And here is a quote from the article. It says, "We found a consistent pattern of trace element abundance that is completely different from anything in the solar system, primitive or evolved. Objects in the asteroid belt and meteors don't match this either." Further tests, which compared the rock's element concentrations with those we'd expect to see in our region of space, came back with even more surprising results. The stone wasn't even from our arm of the galaxy. What? And it had too much iron, too little silicon, and too low a concentration of elements heavier than iron to have come from a solo red dwarf explosion, also known as a Type 2 supernova. I talk about science all day, about space, the universe, things like this. I could listen to it and talk about it all day. While my knowledge is very limited on this, it is still so fascinating. It is so fascinating. I mean, I cannot wait for us to be able to freely travel the universe. And, I would definitely fly my ship through the galaxy like the way I do in Elite Dangerous and discovering worlds and putting my name on the solar systems. And it seems that whenever we talk about space, I have to bring up Elite Dangerous. For those that don't play it, consider it. It's such a great video game. And what's so fantastic about it is because you're really able to explore the entire universe in just a video game. And if you're a traveler or if you like to play combat in the sense of shooting other players or NPCs, you're getting the best of both worlds. And it opens your minds to all these different possibilities that I love playing it when I have the time, which is rare, but for me, it's such a relaxing game to explore our universe. And you can even visit black holes, neutron stars, supernovas, everything that we've covered here. You can visit it in the video game as well. I love it. How many of you play Elite Dangerous? Or who plays Elite Dangerous? Let me just put it that way. Who plays it or who would like to play it? So much fun. Dan says, Elite Dangerous, or as we fondly call it, Space Truckin'. That's so funny. Cindy, thank you so much. That's a story for another time, but I'm playing with foundations and I'm still working on it. I have naturally very oily skin. How many of you have super oily skin? And if you do, please help me with mine. I've taken everything from like acne pills to like natural remedies, but most foundations can't like withstand how much oil I produce, that within an hour I turn to like this shiny star, like a shiny crystal ball. And you'll probably notice that in previous streams. So Cindy, I really appreciate that compliment, because I just tried a new foundation and a new technique to not look so shiny. I mean, I don't like that, and I don't think most people would like that either. But when we're talking about supernovas and space and stars, I think it's okay to look like a star. Sunspot, do you have any remedies to help with that if that's the case? Because you see, if you have like super dry skin, you can just add a bunch of lotion, and then it'll be fine. But when you have super oily skin, you can just like dab all day, and nothing really helps with that. Xavier, you're so funny. You're meant to shine. Well, it's not intentional, that's for sure. So this next article really hit home for me, and it's talking about squid. And I'm bringing this up because in the 3rd grade, I had to write a paper about some type of ocean creature. And I was like, I'm going to write a paper about squids. And ever since then, I just have this fondness for them, squid and octopi as well, because they're just fascinating creatures. They really are. Now, if you put it in my food, no, I'm gonna pass. I really don't like the texture. This one time I tried inked noodles. No, it was not my cup of tea. I was not fond of it. But it is something that I don't think I'd recommend to anyone. But these kinds of creatures, they look kind of alien. And that's something else that's pretty fascinating. And we can even talk about the stuff from H.P. Lovecraft books, right? Like Cthulhu and stuff like that. It is based on squid and octopi. And yeah, I can totally get that. They are kind of weird looking. They do look kind of alien. And there are some theories on that maybe it could have been part of panspermia, but that's going to be a story for another time. So let's get into this article. So, this ginormous squid was found on the South African beach. And this is a pretty rare sight, okay? But seeing this giant squid carcass. And what's really interesting, like why this is so rare, is because squid usually live anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000 feet in the depths of the ocean. So for this squid, the body was around 2.2 meters or about 7 feet long. And then with the tentacles and arms, it could have stretched anywhere to about 3.5 meters or 11 feet long. Okay. So this squid beached at night after sustaining injuries. And this possibly could have been with the encounter with a commercial boat or fishing vessel. And they were able to realize this because they could see a long gash above its tentacles, which we could presume was from a boat propeller. And then they also state that this squid was about 2 years old and a female as well. So while this seeing a squid, and especially a beached squid, is rare, it's not necessarily unheard of. And a beautifully preserved baby giant squid washed up near Cape Town in 2020 that was reported by the Washington Post. And another adult species that washed ashore in the same area in 1992 and was over 30 feet long or 9 meters. Unbelievable. That is so crazy. Let's say you're a scuba diver and you saw, well, I don't think you can't scuba dive that deep. Well, let's just say that it came closer to the surface and you saw just a giant squid, and they're literally called giant squids, or a colossal squid. How would you react? I have never been scuba diving. I have snorkeled before. That was pretty fun. But if I saw a giant squid or a colossal squid or even like a giant octopus, I don't know how I would feel about that. Luckily, I'll just say, hey, look, I am your friend, you are my friend, let's go our separate ways. Or if I can get some type of like underwater camera, I would snap a few shots. But aside from that, if I wasn't prepared, or like let's say it snuck from behind, I'd be scared. Like without a doubt. I'd have a giant squid rant. Wow. You couldn't pay me to scuba dive. Oh, wait, why is that? Why for those that have been scuba diving, why do you like it? And for those that have been scuba diving and didn't like it, why not? What was it that made it an enjoyable experience or not? Like I said, I've never been scuba diving. I've only been snorkeling. And between you and me, don't really like I don't really like swimming in the ocean. It makes me very nervous, very uncomfortable, thinking that, I don't know, maybe I'll like drown or something somehow in some way. So I like putting my feet in like the ocean and the water and stuff like that, but actually being submerged in it or being far away from shore, no, thank you. I'm going to very kindly pass unless I can have like a little noodle, and swim like this. then that's kind of okay. Other than that, no, thank you. You agree? Thank you for agreeing with me. But it's okay. I mean, like the ocean is a beautiful place. Do not get me wrong. If I'm on a boat, totally okay. But just casually being in the middle of the ocean and like having to swim with no life jacket or no flotation device, I'm going to very kindly pass. We have no business being in the ocean. How would you like a 100-foot tall being swimming through your lounge room? Very valid. Absolutely very valid. I can totally understand that mentality. Ooh, Logan says, I scuba dived in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia and hugged a giant fish. What? But I hated it. I spent the whole boat trip puking, never again. Yeah, fish are kind of slimy, like in the ocean and like even out when you have to hold it and take a picture or what if you're fishing or whatever. Yeah, I'm not a big fan, and I have been motion sick on a boat more than once. I don't like that feeling either. I have to take those like motion pills to prevent any of that. I'm going to tell you a fear of mine. Okay, so I also don't like fishing. I've tried fishing. I don't like it, and here's why. My biggest fear of fishing, even if I'm like by myself, is if I like hook it back, then I'm gonna take someone's eyeball out and then like throw it in the water. I don't know. It's like this. I've had this fear since I was like 7, and I've never grown past that. So I just don't like fishing. I'll watch other people fish from like a very far distance because of that fear. And I'll be like, yeah, great job. Woo, you caught a fish. Good for you. But I'm gonna be all the way over here in the snack bar. And that's where you can find me. Where the snacks are and where like the drinks, like some water or some mango juice, you're gonna find me there. In the ocean or with other fishing people. No, thank you. So this is why I'm bringing up this article, is because it's just so fascinating when we're dealing with ocean type of creatures. And especially because it just really, again, it hits home for me because I had to write a paper for this in the 3rd grade. And the 3rd grade is so memorable because I had a very scary teacher in the 3rd grade. Also, the time where we had to learn how to write cursive, which they don't teach that anymore in school, which I wish they did. Cursive is kind of nice and it's easier than writing, standard. But it was a tough time in the 3rd grade. Not nice. When we're looking at these colossal squids, and that I had mentioned a little bit earlier, why it's rare. Well, one, because they like to be anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000 feet in the depth of the ocean, but they also like really cold temperatures. That's why they're so deep, right? So they can most commonly be found in Antarctica, for the most part. But then you have octopus, which like kind of a little bit warmer temperatures, and they also like to be on the sea floor because they also have different diets. Squid and octopi have totally different diets. And what's so cool about the both of these is that you can have squid, if they're feeling threatened, they're going to spew out kind of like these little ink clouds. And some octopus can do this as well, but for the most part, they like to camouflage or fit in the tiniest little crevices on the ocean floor. Have you ever seen a video of an octopus going into like a glass jar, like these ginormous octopus just going into this tiny little glass jar? Blows my mind. The same way that cats can kind of, I don't know, move all their bones and fit through like a little crevice in under the couch. Blows my mind. It really does. Let me show you the anatomy of what a squid looks like. So here we go. Here's how it looks on the outside. Here's how it looks on the inside. And squid and octopi have 3 hearts. Very cool. And if you see this, it has little jaws, and here's the mouth area. You got the brain right here, right next to the mouth. And then you practically have all the other organs going for it right here. Look at that. Here it is how it looks if you're just going to see it right in the ocean. And then here's how it looks right on the inside. Which, let's say we're looking at this as a person, okay? Because when I was first looking at this, I'm thinking, wow, why is their head, their brain so close to their mouth? And then I'm thinking, well, that's like us. So then if that's the case, then this would be like the rest of the body, like how like our chest and our organs, it's very much the same. It's just a lot more spread out in this squid. Anyways, I found this really fascinating. I wanted to share it with you. Curious George says, 3 hearts, so much love to give. I guess. You can never give too much love, and that's a fact. Ponyo, cuttlefish are pretty darn adorable. For those that haven't seen a cuttlefish, let's pull up a picture. I mean, I'm going to ask your opinion first on what you think a cuttlefish looks like before I even give my opinion. Okay, cuttlefish. Look how cute this is. Is that not the cutest thing? Kind of like little sea turtles. Also adorable. Aditya, thank you so much. It says, do you think dolphins, octopi, etc. would have established intelligence, planned colonies in the ocean at some point in the future? Ooh. Well, how far in the future? That's my question. If we're looking at maybe a few million years, could very well be. I mean, we are aware that dolphins and octopi are incredibly intelligent. I mean, this is a known fact. But if they're able to create their own colonies, maybe in 100, maybe in a million years, something like that. Well, here's the thing with octopi, they are more of they're more of an individualist compared to squid that live in communities, and dolphins live in small communities. So if we're looking at octopi, I don't know if they would build colonies just based off of, again, they don't for the most part live with multiple other people, other species that represent their own. But if we're looking at maybe at dolphins, it could very well be, but it's really hard to say, and we won't be alive to see it, which is rather unfortunate. But maybe our super duper incredibly great grandchildren might be able to. Hyde says, Jazz Shaw would say yes. Oh, so here's my question. What does this little cuttlefish remind you of? Like, what kind of other animal, aside from a squid and an octopus? Obviously. Aside from that, what does it kind of look like to you? Actually, this one looks terribly evil. I'm just going to share this entire, so we can go through all the pictures together. Okay. So look, we got this evil looking one. That looks more like Cthulhu in my opinion. But then you have some, actually none of these look cute. That looks like a crab. Does not look cute at all. But this one, no, this one. This one is very cute. I like Squidward. That is the correct answer. That was not what I was thinking. But if anyone ever makes a SpongeBob reference, in instant brownie points. I grew up watching SpongeBob. That was my favorite TV show next to the Twilight Zone. So I know almost every episode until 2012 by heart. So don't don't go there with me. Here's this one. This one's very cool. It's camouflaging into its surroundings. Here's this one as well. It's kind of like a lampshade. But cuttlefish are really fascinating creatures. And here's the thing, so much of our ocean has yet to be explored, and yet we're jumping forward and trying to explore space, which is also fantastic. But so much of our oceans still need to be explored. And if I wasn't so scared of the ocean, I would probably be a super cool scuba diver and like travel as much as I could, looking at everything that I possibly can. What's interesting about cuttlefish is that they're said to be highly intelligent for a marine animal. That's another fascinating fact about them. Not only are they just super cute, but they're also incredibly intelligent. So you don't want to underestimate them. Let me pull up this article right here. They also have incredibly good memory as well. Wow. Probably better memory than the most of us. Oh. So I'm looking at that article right now, and we can look at it together. Okay. So take a look at this. There's a whole article. Unlike humans, cuttlefish have sharp memories even in old age. Look how cute that picture is. Look at his little eyeball. Very cute. Jeremy, thank you so much for the super sticker. So that's bad. So it says here, and it's highlighted, which is awesome. It says, because they lack external armor, they use their impressive intelligence and camouflage abilities to outsmart predators. Again, just goes to show you don't want to underestimate them if you happen to see them while you're scuba diving. You don't know what they have in mind. Yep, that's a cute Cthulhu. For those that haven't read the story by H.P. Lovecraft, definitely look at him and look at his stories and all of his stories and even his background. He's written some very fascinating things. And Pete McCarthy and I actually went into some detail when he was my guest for Shifting the Paradigm. He is someone that is pretty knowledgeable when it comes to H.P. Lovecraft. So if you haven't seen that interview, I do recommend it. It's from maybe like a month or two back, but for those that aren't familiar with H.P. Lovecraft, you will learn about him in that interview. A little bit earlier, I mentioned if any of you, like, if you were given squid on a plate, would you eat it? My answer is still no. I've tried it and it's not my cup of tea. I've tried inked noodles, which like they take ink from the ink sac and they kind of pour it on noodles and then you eat it. Yeah, it has a very acquired taste. It's kind of bitter. It's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like, it's just hard. Like if hard was a flavor, if it was a taste, that would be Inca noodles. No, thank you. But hey, I'll try everything once. I'll try all foods once. And I did, and once was more than enough. So it was rather unfortunate that Chris Plain couldn't make it today for Strange Paradigms, but hopefully you still enjoyed the stories that we covered today. Please make sure to share it with your friends or with other groups who have the same interest as we do. I want to wish you all a wonderful weekend. Please like this video and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.